to get tested. And this program there was like, we want her. She's psychic. Let's do things. That makes me nervous because that time and that area of the world is near Montauk. So she might have dodged like being part of like some deep dark kid shit that like she is so lucky she wasn't a part of. So her father had a friend at all right, let me read you something else quick before I get into the next part. My father took me to Hempstead Air Force Base. There was a program going on there, and there were lots of other kids and parents. I spent the next 5 days of my life being tested on all things psychic. My parents were notified that I had strong abilities, that remote viewing was one of my big talents, and that there was a program they wanted to put me in. Now, her father, of course, was considering that. I mean, I would consider that with my own kids. Well, maybe not knowing where all this dark shit goes, but the father actually got intel from his buddy at NASA, and his friend at NASA was like, don't put your kid in that fucking program. Just do not do that. Whatever you do not do that. And if I was like, all right, I'm not gonna put in that shit. So the father was like, okay, I'm gonna put you in a bunch of karate classes and do something else and target your energy somewhere else. So he put her in like karate classes and stuff. At age 8 is when she remembers waking up on a strange ship. She remembers waking up on a ship, and she remembers waking up in a room, and there's all these other kids around her. And then she also remembers being taken to a strange place. Let me read this to you. Where we went had a lesser gravity than I'm used to, Dolly says. It was almost an unimaginable place. I've never seen anything like it before or since. Very odd kinds of flora and fauna. There were these towers with huge ground terraces, and we would either go in at the bottom and go up a staircase, or we'd all hold hands and we'd jump up and get in that way. She was taken there many, many times. And what she surmises and what she talks about is when she was taken, it wasn't about like learning how to be an engineer or a mathematician or a scientist. It was more about being altruistic. It was like they were learning to be empathetic and good people and just help their fellow human beings. It was less about like learning a specific skill. It was understanding consciousness and that we're all connected. It was very love and light, which is super interesting. Never mind you're getting abducted and put on a spaceship on another planet. Still, it's a good message. At least it teaches you something cool.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like your classic alien takeover kind of thing, you know?
Right. Because all that's bullshit, Matt. Maybe not. Maybe it is. Okay, so now getting forward, this story just ramps up the craziness. So at 14 years old, she got really into astronomy. She lived in Florida, and her father at this point worked for NASA as an engineer and architect. This guy was an Army Ranger and then an engineer and architect. He's like a badass. This guy's smart. And she got really into shit. So she was stargazing at 2 a.m. Because she was astronomy. She was looking up at the sky. She noticed like all these like lights in the sky, like 50 UFOs suddenly like moving around. Two of them dropped down near to where she lives and like split off in different directions. But one came down near her house, and she ran inside because she had the telescope outside and went to her bedroom. She panicked. The room just turned all bright, and she blacked out. When she woke up, it was 6 a.m., so she had 4 hours of missing time.
Oh, see, that always happens as well, right?
Yeah, missing time is always a part of abductions. But this is where it starts to get interesting. She wakes up, and she notices a strange lump in her cartilage of her nose. And she just went on for years, and she noticed it for years after this incident.
Really?
And, like, wanted to get it out. So let me read you the next passage. She's a badass. She's trained in karate. Her dad's in the military. She's super smart. So she's like, you know what? I'm gonna get this fucking thing out myself. So she says, I opened my nose up and pushed until it popped out. What popped out was freakish. It looked metallic, about the size of a grain of rice. It suddenly fuzzed over and then literally disappears. I watched it disappear.
What?
So it gets crazier. So she was baffled by this. Wakes up the next morning. And then she has a similar sensation in her ear. So so as soon as she took it out, the next morning,
got her again.
Something put it back right in her ear.
Oh,
years later,
try to get this out.
Right, and she. But
that
she
reminds
was like,
me of that reminds me of a lot of the abduction things, or even like the fucking angel hair, the alien jizz. Right? It's just something that. It's some sort of material that kind of disappears and dissipates after a time, you know?
Oh, you're right. Like, what's that technology? Somehow they have the ability to make things dissipate when they want to. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So the next day... Okay, yeah, go
ahead. No, every part of the story it rings true to when people get abducted. I was just recently interviewing some people that had the same thing, missing time. They saw some lights in the room. but tossed them in a room, missing time, and they had something stuck up their nose. And they had to get it surgically taken out. And when it came out, they wanted to see it. And the doctor's like, no, I'll give it to you tomorrow after testing. And then it just disappeared.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it sort of validates their story because these are just random people with the same story.
Yeah, they can't all be lying. So years went by, and she pulled that one out too, and then another one appeared in her leg. So she just gave up on that. She's like, I'll just leave one in my fucking leg. Now,
she's going to be covered in scars.
Yeah, she was like, I'm done. This is fine. They're going to obviously fucking with me. So at this point, there's a random tangent in this story before I get to the crazy, awesome, heartwarming part where she was just camping and claimed she encountered a reptilian in the woods while she was camping, and it scared her, and she ran back to her tent. The only reason why I'm bringing it up is because it just seems like when people in these long-scale abduction cases over their whole life always encounter reptilian at some point. All of them do. I don't know what's going on. Like, why was reptilian in the forest that night looking at her? There's some sort of connection there, because it seems random and out of nowhere and not connected, but I feel like it is. Like, just like the story I told about that lady who went to the moon, it's like most of it was about humans and other aliens, but there was a reptilian there, you know, and the show, it was always scaring you. Like, you just wonder, like, what that's about or what they're used for. Was it watching her? Like, is it like, I don't know. I don't even want to speculate. I just want to point that out.
Yeah,
that
you're right.
reptilian.
Yeah, those cheeky fucks always turn up. But it's almost like a competing race, you know? It's like one race of aliens is like doing this thing to the people, and then the other race, the competing alien race, the reptilians or whoever, finds out about it, and they're like checking on, like, what are you doing? What are you doing to this person? What's happening here?
She's my RH negative bitch.
Right. Yeah, maybe it's a mark thing, because reptilians want negativity. These aliens seem to want love and light, so maybe there's a battle there. They're like, they know who they marked, and they're trying to, like, reverse it or something like that. No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay. And in 1984, fast forwarding, at age 26, she lived in Atlanta, hot Atlanta, and she was diagnosed with diabetic keto. Fuck both of you guys for making fun of me because I'm not even going to pronounce
it. Here we go.
Or DKA. It's called DKA. It's got an acronym. It's a disease. So she was really sick and feeling weird.
That's it?
That's it? No, I'm not even going to try. You're smiling at me like little kids waiting for a treat. God damn it. So her family leaves for a funeral, but she stays home. She felt very unwell. She passes out, and she crawls into bed. I'm going to read you something else. It's going to blow you.
So how old is she right now?
26.
She's 26 now. Okay.
Yeah. Suddenly, she kind of comes out of her haze for a second. She sees a tall white standing next to her bed. Ooh. He looked very concerned, Dolly says. And he said, telepathically, you have to keep going. You have to get help. And Dolly was too tired to care. But eventually he convinced her, you need to get help. She's like, fine, hand me the phone. He hands her the phone. She's like, wow, a tall white just handed me the phone. She calls the hospital, gets rushed to the hospital, and gets there, and the doctor's like, thank God you got here in time. You would have died like within an hour if you didn't get here right now. And you're diabetic, your blood pressure is super low, you're about to die. Thank God you're here. She was like, did that tall white just warn me to like not... it just warned me that I was going to die? And she's like, holy shit, that was crazy. So we're going to keep fast forwarding. These things happened over a lifetime. I'm condensing it, obviously, as a saga. So in 2008, Dolly worked for the government. She was a security specialist for the Army, did transported bombs and other really important high-risk things. She drove a lot of vehicles. She could drive every Army vehicle there was. She's a badass. At the time, she was at Fort Benning, which is about 50 miles from where she lived at the time in Columbus, Georgia. So at the time, she was married to an ex-Navy intelligence officer who she didn't know at that time, but he was a extremely dangerous sociopath. He had taken a $500,000 life insurance policy on her, and then began to secretly poison her with antifreeze in her food.
What? Oh my God! This is like a Dateline situation. Now we went from aliens to Dateline.
It gets intense.
Just a normal girl that had an alien experience in a small town. What could go wrong? Antifreeze. Okay, go on.
Dolly, man. So she started to... Obviously, she felt sick all the time, tired all the time. And then she had this situation where she was driving to work, It was close to dark, and she saw a UFO in the sky, and it whipped up to her, and it came about 400 feet above her. Let me read you this part. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I went into dead shock. It was coming that fast. It was coming for me. It buzzed me. I slammed on my brakes. As it went past me, I caught a glimpse of it. It was triangular shaped and... God damn it, another word I can't pronounce. Ginormous. No, it's ginormous. I can pronounce ginormous. It just looked like weird. It was like Gina and normous. I was nervous.
It's not actually a word, just to help you out there a little.
Oh, thanks, man.
It's like a combination of 2 words. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah.
And it turned back, swung around, and hovered. I was stopped in the middle of the road staring at this thing. And I got this overwhelming message in my head. Home is not a good place. Home is bad. Home is not a good place. And then the UFO just took off straight up and out of sight. Huh. So, later that night, she went home, and it finally dawned on her. She was like, my husband's been acting weird as fuck lately. He's been distant. He's not trying to have sex with me anymore. I'm just kidding. I threw that in there. I have no idea if that's true.
Wow.
And
I was like, wow, this is so many details.
Yeah. She's really, really pouring it out there. Good for her.
Yeah.
All he wanted was...
Like, I'm putting it together. What's going on? I haven't got any cock lately. He's acting weird. He's got to be poisoning me. I know it.
So she realized he was poisoning him. Her. And started watching him closely. Like the next night, she ordered Chinese food, and she puked immediately. She went to the hospital, and the doctors were like, there was food poisoning, whatever. But then, like, a couple days later, they took blood tests, but she didn't get it back yet. So a couple days later, she's driving her stepdaughter around, and she has basically what she describes as a heart attack. And goes to the hospital immediately and almost dies. The doctors are like, your kidneys are failing. Everything is going bad. It looks like you're dying. We got to get this. Just take it easy until we get a blood test back to see what's going on. So she comes home. She doesn't even know about the antifreeze yet. And all of a sudden, she realizes that her paycheck has been taken immediately. And she calls her husband, and husband's like, yeah, since you're too sick to deal with it, I'm taking over all your finances. And you don't have to worry about it anymore. And she was like, that's it. You're fucking been treating me like shit, and I'm sick all the time, and you're taking my money. You're done. She breaks up with him. And he goes crazy. It's a long, drawn-out process where it takes, a year. She has to get a restraining order. But right after she breaks up, and like a day or two later, she gets a test back, and they confirm she has antifreeze in her fucking bloodstream. Like, I don't even know what antifreeze can do.
Yep.
But
I get why he's frustrated. He's obviously put a lot of work into poisoning this lady.
Yeah, and it's not working.
It's tough to...
Wouldn't you bring him to court and accuse him of attempted murder?
I guess you have to prove that he put antifreeze in your food. Unless you had the proof, how could you ever prove it, right?
Oh, God, what a nightmare. So she's been harassed by aliens, and now she dated a psychopath, or married a psychopath, and now what happens?
What turned up in the blood
test? It dawns on her. Well, just antifreeze. But she realizes, she was like, wait, the UFO told me to go home, and she connects it, and she's like, holy shit, the UFO saved my life again, which is amazing. So the last big part of the story is, I call it the reveal. So years later, she gets a call. Her brother fell down a flight of stairs near Atlanta. She left Atlanta at that point and broke a ton of bones. So she drives up there to help her brother, and in a weird twist of fate, slips on ice out front and breaks her arm and gets sent to the hospital.
Jesus.
So she comes back in the middle of the night, and this is what I want to read to you. This is going to be a page or two, but it's totally worth it. That night, she woke up in the middle of the night. She went to the kitchen to see if there was some juice or milk. I looked to the doorway, Dolly says, and they were standing there, a very tall white and a short gray. I had seen this pair before. Several thoughts rushed to her mind. Why are you here? I'm wide awake. Why are you standing there? And then, quote, I started to get excited, Dolly says. I couldn't believe I was standing there looking at them. The taller being began to speak telepathically and calmly, expressing concern about her injuries. Dolly explained that she had gone to the hospital, and the doctors assured her she would be fine. She looked at the tall white and wondered, why are you so familiar to me? He goes, you know who I am, with a quirky half-smile on his thin lips. His large, expressive eyes seemed to dance with subtle merriment. Well, yeah, okay, you say ooh, but it's actually the opposite. So he looks happy. Like, why is he happy? That sounded creepy the way that sentence reads, but it's actually like a good moment. No, I don't, she says. Yes, you do, he said. You might not be able to recall completely, but you know who I am. Okay, who are you? I am your child, he said. You are my biological mother. Dolly stared at her in fascination. I was stunned silent, she says. I didn't know how to react. I started searching his face, and I realized that he looked like he was my kid, but a mixed-race child, and it stunned me. And I asked him, how old are you? He goes, I am close to 20 or 25 of